Are we on, guys? Okay. Am I on? Can you hear me? Yeah, you can. Okay. So, good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for coming. So good to see you. And my name is Martha Rentfro, and I am the, director of the Lost Skills program here that we've been doing since last February. We've been having different types of classes. The reason we call it Lost Skills is it's things that we aren't all taught anymore, and especially the younger generations and stuff. And so what we're trying to do is help people learn these skills. We've been doing gardening, we've done some pantry management, we've done bread making and foraging, and now we're doing canning. And I know that there are going to be more people coming in, but we want to get started because if we don't, we're not going to get it all in. So I'm presenting today with my daughter, Laurel, and it's really an inspiration to me to see that she's picked up on the things that she grew up with. Because, we can. Well, I grew up with my mother's in the back there, and she taught us everything we know about canning. And, well, maybe not everything. We all keep learning, but so it's lots of fun. Why are we doing Lost Skills? One thing is to be independent as we can be, not to be dependent on the system. If some emergency happens, whether it's a medical emergency and we, or a lost job or something like that, we have a backup, because of how we've prepared our pantry or how we've learned to garden and then preserve our food or whatever. And that's what I think everybody needs, some of that. So we are going to go ahead and get started. And for me, I am going to say a prayer because I need help to give you the right information. So, dear Father in heaven, we thank you that we have the privilege to be able to teach people about canning and stuff, and I just pray that you will give us wisdom and also give us the calmness to be able to present it well. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so now what we want to say, one of the things in preserving, we want you to be preserving the things that you and your family will eat. You don't necessarily want to preserve the things that, just because somebody else is preserving it or whatever, or that looks good, but preserve things that you and your family would eat, and then estimate the amount that you would use in a year to preserve them. Now, what kind of storage do you have? If you have a freezer, if you freeze a lot of food, do you have an alternate source of power? That's one of the things I ended up with, thinking, oh my, I'm trying to preserve all the food I can, but what if the power goes out and my freezer goes out and I don't have a generator? I'm kind of trying to go back and forth because I see some of you. So sometimes you might see me and sometimes you won't, but so that everybody can see me. So if you don't have, do you have a place to store jars? Then you can can stuff and you can store your jars that way. So this last year, I decided I wanted to can corn. And I decided I wanted to put up corn, but I thought, okay, so if I freeze it, what if my freezer goes out? Or what if the electricity goes out? Which last November, it was out for 30 hours, and Don, our friend here, brought a generator, and about 4 hours later it came back on. But So, or blueberries or things like that. I canned corn and I canned blueberries on purpose this last year, and I'm glad that I did. And I find a purpose for them, and they do work for us. Canned blueberries work really great for, I use them a lot for putting over pancakes or waffles or something like that. Thicken them up a little bit, put a little bit of sweetener in them, and they work out just really great. With the canned corn, we really like that now. It turned out really great, and now I think I'll can my corn mostly than freeze it.
It's also more convenient. You can just open a can instead of defrosting, letting the corn thaw.
It sure is, and you'll see some of all that stuff up there. Okay, so freezing, and you will have, we had some technical difficulties with not having enough toner, so somebody's out printing our handouts, so hopefully they'll be back soon. But what I have referred to on your handout is refer you to the National Center for Food Preservation. It has general information there. There's a link on it that you'll get, and they talk about, you can look for freezing stuff or canning or whatever, and they talk about all those things. Some foods freeze better than others. Sometimes some people have not liked corn frozen, or and I cannot remember which works best, but do you blanch the corn before you freeze it? Or do you freeze it without being blanched, So it kind of makes a difference of how it tastes. Now, we're not going to talk too much about freezing, but I'm just going over some things really quick. Fruits and vegetables last about 8 to 12 months in the freezer, whereas meats, fish, and poultry last 2 to 9 months in the freezer, according to the National Center for Food Preservation. Blanching is usually needed for vegetables to stop the enzyme action. So you blanch them, and that means putting them in boiling water for about 3 minutes. Usually it depends on how big your vegetables are. And you put them in boiling water to stop the enzyme action. And then you take them out and you put them in a cold, like a lot of people will use an ice bath, to stop the cooking process. Yes?
If it quits boiling when you put them in there, do you wait for it to come back to a boil or take them out?
It just depends. That's a good question. When you blanch and you put your vegetables in, it will kind of stop the boiling for a little bit. I kind of measure by how long it takes to come back to a boil, because it's pretty hot in there and I don't want them cooked too much. So I just kind of measure how long it takes to come back to a boiling. If they come right back to a boiling, then it'll be almost 3 minutes, but otherwise yeah. Okay. And then and also it kills the microorganisms and preserves flavor. So there's a lot of information on that website of in how long to blanch vegetables. Like I said, things that are big, might need a lot longer blanching than the small peas and stuff like that. So it's advantageous to freeze a lot of things on trays. What I did when I had a ton of eggplant last year, I love eggplant, and I was able to, I dipped it in, flour, and then dipped it in milk, and then dipped it in breadcrumbs, and then I put it on cookie sheets and just flash froze it in the freezer. And then, a few hours later, then I took it off and I put it in Ziploc bags. And I mean, these were gallon Ziploc bags. I had them full of that eggplant. And I ended up with 5 of those, and I'm almost done with using it. But it was really nice for eggplant parmesan or stuff like that, you know. But sometimes laying it out, or sometimes with raspberries and things like that, if you have a cookie sheet that has sides on it, put it in the freezer, freeze them so that they're more individual, they don't get mush all together, and then you can put them in a bag. Okay. When freezing fruits, which can turn brown, you will want to use either some fruit fresh or citric acid or lemon juice or something to help preserve, and so that they don't turn their color, and it preserves the vitamin C. And make sure you label your containers, whether it's the Ziploc bags or whatever you're doing, with a permanent marker or something that will stick, because I have put stuff in the freezer and the little label comes off. So, okay, and make sure you include the date that you froze them. Okay, now we're going to refer again to the National Center for Food Preservation for information on canning. And there's a lot of information. I'm not going to go over this, I think, until after you get your things. There's some information on pressure canning, what needs pressure canned, what doesn't need pressure canned. Generally, things that are high acid or higher acid can be water bath canned. And I don't want to go into that too much. I don't want to take your thunder here. So foods that are low acid, like green beans, potatoes, meats, and all kinds of things like that that are low acid, will need to be pressure canned, and we'll talk a little bit about that afterwards. Really not going to go into a lot of pressure canning. We just want you to know the equipment, and we want you to, we'll hopefully after our demonstration of the water bathing, then we'll be able to go over that. Melody, would you make sure that that kettle is on to boil? Sure. Thank you. Okay. One other thing that I do pressure can a lot is dry beans. I make my own, you know, the cans of beans you buy. I don't buy them anymore. and I'll tell you a little bit more about how I do my own beans, you know, the dry beans. Okay, Laurel, why don't you go ahead on if there should be power outage.
Yeah, so she mentioned earlier they had a power outage. So most of us, pretty much all of us, have experienced a power outage, right? So do we open the freezer then? I don't, because I don't have a generator. So all of that food is unavailable to me while I have a power outage. I have no way to cook it if it was available to me. And if the power is out for too long, then I've wasted all of that. So that's one of the advantages. Now, we do freeze still, but that's one of the advantages of having a good selection of canned things too. Because let's see, she's got tomato soup. So if the power's out, tomato soup is, best served hot, but in a pinch, if I need to eat, I'll eat cold tomato soup. Even the vegetables or fruits, you can eat them straight. My daughter picks up the pineapple and eats it straight out of the can. So things like that, it's also very convenient. I work, and between my daughter and I, we both work. There's not a lot of time for meals. There's, Mom canned some green tomato curry. Add beans or some sort of protein source, and there's a full meal right there. Maybe put it over rice. So there's a lot of convenience to it as well. And it's a lot healthier. Like I had some issues with hypertension, and everything you purchase in the store that's quick and convenient is so loaded with sodium. And so this, you can control how much sodium you have in it yourself. So then there's several different methods. There's three primary methods of canning. One of them is water bath canning, which we'll get into with our demonstration. And so as I think you mentioned, that's for your high acidic foods or foods that you can add acid to. You can also do some convenience foods, like she has the zucchini relish here because you're adding acid to this. So zucchini is not naturally acidic, but you're adding the acid to make the relish.
And so it has some vinegar in it, or sometimes some of them have lemon juice. Yeah.
Right, so I do blueberry butter, and blueberries aren't naturally acidic, but I put lemon juice in it. So that helps to increase the acidity. And then pressure canning you use for your lower acidic foods with a pH higher than 4.6. Then there's open kettle canning, which you use a completely sterile method, and that's actually how I can blueberry butter. A lot of people use it for jams too. When your product is hot, therefore sterile, you boil your jars, boil your lids, boil your equipment, wash your hands, so everything you're using is sterile. And the nice thing about it is then you put the lid on and then the jar, everything's hot. And I was taught, I wasn't taught by her with this one, I was taught you put it upside down. She just puts it right side up, so I guess you just close it up, put it on your towel because you don't want it on the cold surface of the counter, and it cans itself.
And I heard somebody else who, they did that same thing, and then they wrapped it, and this is something that they do in Europe, they wrap it in blankets and keep it there, and it keeps hot for several days, you know, and but it seals good that way.
So,
Water bath, you just heat the
yep, you just make sure.
blueberry filling.
Yep, the blueberry filling's heated, so I make it in the crock pot, so it's already hot. And when it's ready, when it's thick enough and ready to can, I just make sure that my jars are sterile. And again, this has lemon juice in it, so it's acidic. So the open kettle canning is also for your acidic foods. And then, so just everything's sterile. My utensils that I'm using, anything that's touching this jar is sterile. And then I can just put the lid on, put the ring on, and put it on my towel, and it seals itself then.
And sterile means, you know, you have a thing of boiling water, and you just put your utensils in there that you're going to use, or you boil your lids, you know.
I've used the dishwasher
Everything.
too for my jars. I put the jars in the dishwasher, and once they finish the heat cycle, then they're ready, as long as I can time it for them to be ready when I'm ready to can.
And if you don't have a dishwasher, I take a large kettle, I put a dish towel or something in the bottom of it, and fill it with water, and put the jars upside down and just boil them that way.
A lot of dishwashers have sterilization on it as a separate cycle.
Yeah, some of
yeah.
them do have that.
Yeah, if the dishwasher has a separate cycle for sterilization, that would be great.
Okay, so then equipment, types of jars. Mason jars, you know, most of the, there's ball, there's cur, there's, you know, there's all kinds of different jars. We used to do mayonnaise jars. That's how we used to do them.
The glass
I call
ones.
that, or people call that rebel canning. I still do that.
It only works with glass ones, though.
Yeah, glass mayonnaise jars, you know. So that we have the quarts, the pints, the half pints, and they can come in two different styles there. We have, where'd their salt go? Here, these are the little quarter pints, and they're pretty cute for giving away jams or jellies, but of course, whoever you give it to is gonna go, what, that's all? Okay. And then, of course, there are two quart jars, which are like a half gallon. That's mostly for if you're doing juices or something like that. And also, there are a lot of other canning jars out there, different types of sealing and, you know, all these fancy things, but we're not going to get into all those today.
1 gallon also.
What? 1 gallon, yeah.
Yeah.
So you need your, so you have your jars. You can get those anywhere. You can get them with maybe your grandma or your older neighbor is wanting to get out of canning, you know. And sometimes you can get them pretty cheap or
At
pretty
yard
there,
sales
you know.
sometimes too.
What?
Sometimes at yard sales.
Sometimes at yard sales. I've noticed at thrift shops, they're up to $1 a jar. I remember when she was about 5 years old, we were buying them at $1 a dozen. So they've gone up, the used ones.
Well, depending on the size too, you can get them for $1 a jar new almost, or at least
Yeah,
very
it
close.
depends. It depends. I think I saw the new ones on the quarts were about $15, $16 lately. Okay, so you do need canning lids to go with them. There are different ones. There's Ball. I've used the Golden Harvest. Some people like them, some people don't. I haven't really had any trouble with them. That's one of the cheaper ones. I get them at Walmart or whatever. And then, of course, there's smallmouth and there's wide mouth. And you can see some of the jars over there. We have, do you want, yeah. They're wide mouth jars. It's easier to get stuff in wide mouth jars sometimes. And so you just need different lids for those. Also, if you have jars but you don't have rings, because you have to have, I had a yellow bag of rings over there. You have to have rings to go with your jars. And you can get a dozen rings and jar lids in here.
If you buy the jars brand new, it usually comes with the lids and the rings on them.
Yes, if you're buying brand new jars, they come with rings and lids, and I bought a whole bunch of them, so I have all the rings I need. Yes.
How much can you reuse the lids? I know you can reuse the rings, but are the lids also reusable?
The lids are one time, unless you're rebel canning. And the only thing is with these, it depends on how you're taking it off. If you take it off and it twists or it, you know, buckles or does anything like that, no, you can't use them. You have to also inspect them. I didn't bring one that was used. You have to inspect them and make sure that, that it's not scratched in here, you know, and that the rubber looks good, you know. And then one thing you don't do, you do not reuse it for pressure canning. Only for water bath canning. So, again, not off the record exactly, but okay. Okay, so now let's see, equipment more. A water bath canner. There are different kinds of water bath canners. This one is the old-fashioned kind. It was used, and you know, it has a little basket to put all your jars in. And because what you're going to do is you're going to fill it with water to about here, and then you'll put your jars in, and then you'll lower it into the water, just making sure that it doesn't come up. But we'll talk about amount of water in a bit, right? Okay. And then we have a newer kind. This is a steam canner. This is also, you can use it for water bath products. I love this thing for us who don't like to lift as heavy of things. Because when you're lifting that big canner, when you're lifting that big canner, you have a lot of water there besides all the jars and everything, and that's a lot of weight. So this canner is, it has this little thing where you put water in it, but you only put water to the top of, or to here. And so that's not a whole lot of water. Also, this will heat up faster. And it takes a long time for all that water to heat up with your jars. So this heats up faster, and you just set you can do 7 quarts, or you can do about 8 pints in here. And you just put the lid on it and turn your fire up, and then what it does, it brings it to a boil. And then up here you have a temperature thing that it goes by your altitude, and the different zones are for the different altitudes. And it has, when you first get it, the book has a way, and every year, I haven't started using this yet, but I will have to calibrate it, and you put jars in there with water. Basically what it's trying to do is help you to determine what the boiling point is. And then, just a second, and then you mark it. And so every time I use it after that, then I just turn it on and watch for the needle to get up to that point. And then I turn my fire down so that it stays there, and then I time it. And you time it the same amount as for water bath canning. But to me, it's so much more convenient and easy. Yes, James, did you have something?
They don't all come with the
I
thermometer
was
on the top.
just going to say that mine doesn't have that.
Have that, but what I use to gauge mine is when the steam comes out 6 inches.
Oh,
then
okay.
It is at temperature.
From the
Okay.
sides here.
Most you're going to get.
So some of them, what he's saying is, I don't know. Can you guys get that? On the side here, there's a little steam thing, and when your steam goes out 6 inches, then you've come to that boiling point. And then that's when you start timing. Yep. Okay, and then of course pressure canners, and there are different kinds of pressure canners. When I first got mine 30-some years ago, I had tried 2 different other pressure canners. The people that I knew, I borrowed them, and one had a gauge, and one had just a jiggler. And I determined I liked the jiggler better, but everybody's different. This one has a gauge, and it will have a bell too. My daughter bought this at a garage sale. Watch for things at garage sales.
The price was
$3.
right, so $3, I'm happy with the gauge.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't want to get into too much of the pressure canning. If we need to, we'll do another class of pressure canning. But I want you to get the water bath canning today, for those of you. But if there's somebody who has a question and they want to do pressure canning, let me know and we'll get into it. But, the steam comes out here, and once the steam is steaming for about 10 minutes, then you can put the bell on, and then you start getting up to your pressure. And also goes by altitude. Here in our altitude, it's 10 pounds of pressure. Okay, or 11. Your things, your books will tell you. That's one thing I wanted to say. This is the Ball Blue Book, the more recent one, I guess. I've seen a lot of people using this. And so the Ball Blue Book it has all kinds of information about how to can, how to water bath, how to pressure can and everything. And then it has all kinds of recipes. And this is something that you can use to make what you want to make, and it also tells you how many minutes you'll have to pressure. It also tells you headspace and stuff like that, which we'll be talking about later. Okay, but so the way this one works, this jiggler, is that I do the same thing. I watch for the steam coming out, and then it comes out for 10 minutes, and then I put my weight on, and then I wait for it to jiggle. It'll kind of jiggle like this with steam, because it'll let steam go. That's one thing. A pressure canner is safe, because everybody's afraid it's going to blow up. But what this is doing is regulating the steam, and it's letting go. The other thing is there's this little thing here. And, if it gets too much pressure in here, this thing will go and all kinds of, the steam will come out there. It's not going to blow up, Yes, James?
Just make sure that your little steam valve and things like that are open.
Yes, you want to
Look
make.
at it before you put it on.
You want to make
See light
sure.
through it.
You want to make sure that you can see light through there, okay? And the other thing you want to make sure on most of these pressure canners that your ring is good. You don't want it cracked. You don't want it, too stretched out or anything. And what I do is I make sure I kind of soak it in hot water before I use it, because then it kind of swells up and it's going to fit better, and yeah. But pressure canning, like I said, is a good thing. It's just that you have to know what you're doing, and they do work very well. This jiggling, you turn it down until it's just barely jiggling after, and that is your 10 pounds. But they say that it jiggles 4 times a minute. I can't get it down that low, but I just put it a little, so it's just a real soft, jiggle. Okay. Let's see here. On this one, will capacity would be probably 7 quarts or 8 pints, probably. And this one, this is the reason I got the tall one. Sometimes I like it and sometimes I don't. But when I can my beans, I can put 16 pints in here, 2 levels. One thing we forgot to say about the pressure canners is make sure you have one of these
A trivet of some
trivets
sort.
to go in the bottom of your pressure. If you buy one at a garage sale or something,
Well, you're going to want that with a hot water bath too.
yeah. And the thing is, you can use this. I use this for my hot water bath. I used it before I got this, but I did not seal the lid to pressure. I would just put make sure I had enough water in here, and I just use it as a hot water bath. Okay.
So you can, if you get one at a yard sale or something, you can buy trivets separately in your canning section. It doesn't need a lot of space. This one you can see is a pretty low profile. You just don't want the jars to be basically directly on the heat source.
Just a couple other things that are really helpful with canning is a camp chef stove, if you want to do it outside. Or I use a turkey fryer burner and do it outside. Then I don't have the big mess on my stove if it all depends on what you want to do. Also, if you're canning a whole bunch of stuff like you're cooking down tomato soup or something like that, you can use one of the roasting pans, and those cook a large amount up pretty nice and easy. One other thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to put it on my notes. This is a really good thing to have for canning also. It's called a Victoria Mill. There's other brands out too, I believe. You can use this for applesauce, or if you're wanting to make tomato juice and you don't want all the seeds and all that stuff in it, you can cook your tomatoes down and put it in here, and then the liquid goes out this way, or the applesauce goes out this way, and your seeds and your
Skins.
pulp and stem and all that stuff comes out this way. Okay, into a pan, and you put a 9x13 pan under here, to catch your stuff. This works really, really good for applesauce, and I've had this very one for 42 years. Somebody gave it to me. So
I found mine at a yard sale too.
yeah, you can find them at yard sales, yes. Okay, so go ahead.
All right, so that's the large equipment that we need, but there's a lot of little things too.
I'm turning this on.
Okay. So, once you've got your water going, you can't just let the jars sit in there until the water cools, and I'm definitely not sticking my hand in there. So the jar lifters, here's one. They go just around the whole jar, so it makes it easier to pick up. I've tried to do it with other utensils without it, and it's a little scary because it's pretty precarious. So these are really nice. You can pick these up also at a canning section. Sometimes they come in a kit with, this is a bubble remover, because when you put your water, when you're canning liquid in, if you have a lot of air bubbles, especially when you're canning fruit, the air will come to the top eventually, and then you have a lot of your food that's exposed. And if it's something like beans, that can dry out. If it's something like fruit, it starts to oxidize and turn brown. And while it's still usually edible, it doesn't look so appetizing. So you can get the bubbles out. You can also use a chopstick. She's got a chopstick here. You can use it and just kind of stick it in and gently move it around to get the bubbles to the top. I know, when you're doing other things, maybe you'd pound it, but you want to avoid pounding it with canning because you've got liquid in there. It's usually hot, even if you're cold packing. You don't want to spread the liquid because you want to keep the top of this jar as clean as possible, which is why a funnel is really helpful, because trying to can in some of these small jars I need a funnel. So, let's see, and the teeth on this bubble remover also helps you measure your head space. Because if you'll see on these jars, a lot of them, some of them got moved around, but you have a head space in here between the top of the jar and your food. And you need that space so that when you're in the canning process, you're not exploding food out of the jars. Because, I wasn't great at science, but I do remember that heat expands things. So, and then let's see. Oh, an electric roasting pan, like a turkey roaster or something like that. That works well. I use my crock pot for cooking down blueberry butter, but I'm excited because I got a turkey roaster this year. That one I did not get at a yard sale, but it was on sale. So, and I'm going to be putting tomatoes in that to make my spaghetti sauce this year. So that's something, you know, it cooks for a long time, and I can just put it in the turkey roaster and let it slow cook for a while, and because you need the tomatoes to cook down for spaghetti sauce. And then it cooks large batches too.
Do you blanch to get the peels off when you make your spaghetti sauce?
Yeah.
Yes, either that or cook them enough that you can put them through the Victoria mill.
Or some people will put them through the Vitamix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some people blend them too. Careful with blending though. Depending on the tomato especially, when you blend the seeds, it can add a bitterness to your sauce. So that's why something like the Victoria mill can help, because it pulls a lot of those seeds out so you don't have that bitterness in them. But at the same time, I've used and had tomato sauce that was blended, and it doesn't, you know, especially once you cook it down, you don't notice it nearly as much. So it just kind of depends on what you have available to you and, you know, what process you're willing to go through. And then, let's see, cold pack canning. Okay, so I did pineapple for the first time this year, and it was kind of fun. And I think the most fun part is that everybody says, pineapple, I never thought of that. So it's kind of fun to do something new. So I cold packed my pineapple this year because I didn't have a lot of time. So I could hot pack or cold pack it. And what I did was I cut the pineapple. With cold packing, everything is cold. Your jar's cold, your fruit, the pineapple was just fresh pineapple. The canning liquid I had boiled, but I had to let it cool. And so once I put everything in my jar and sealed it with the ring and everything, I put it in water that was just room temperature or a little bit warmer, and I had to bring it up to a boil that way. So that, sorry, I'll step over here. So that way I was able to save myself some time, so I didn't have to cook everything and things like that. But at the same time, I have, you know, a jar of almost fresh pineapple. The downfall with that with pineapple is that this one is starting to a little bit, but not too bad. Because there's so much air in pineapple, it can turn, like we talked about the air bubbles, it can turn the fruit a little bit brown as the air escapes as it sits. So one of the things that I could have done is I could have just cooked the pineapple for 10 minutes. That would have helped release a lot of the air. Or with the second batch that I canned, I also let it sit overnight so a lot of the air naturally escaped too. And then I did my cold packing process. I'm sorry? It probably would. I wanted to kind of stay away from adding anything, especially for my first time. So yeah, ascorbic acid would probably help with that. But it's held its color pretty long. This has been, let's see, 6 months. And so it's, you know, it still looks like pineapple. And then, let's see, so,
Not ready
yeah,
for
and
the
then,
demo?
well, then just the other thing with the applesauce, usually we hot pack that, but again, the top of the applesauce can discolor over time because there's no way to keep that from being exposed to the air. So it's still good. I just mix it in before my kiddo sees it.
Okay. One thing I want to say before we go into our demonstration. We've given you a lot of information. We are going to be, doing a demonstration here and showing you the processes, but this is such a quick demonstration of canning that you won't be able to see all of it. We want to make sure that anybody who wants to can and is unsure of themselves in it, that you have more of a chance to have hands-on. And so we're going to offer for anybody who would like to do a hands-on class. It would be about a 4-hour class. And it would have to be limited to 8 people. If we had to, we would do a second one. We'll do the same thing. We'll do tomatoes. We're going to charge just $10 to cover the cost of the produce. Then each person would bring your jars and your bring like 6-quart jars, or if you want them in pints, which pints of tomatoes would be the same as a 15-ounce can of tomatoes, you know. So if you wanted something that you use at, you know, in a recipe or something like that, then you might want pints. But you would bring either 12 pints or 6 quarts to the class, and we would all work together. And there are different stations. Part of it is the scalding, you know, to take the skin off. Another part of it is getting, put this on. Another part of it is jarring it, and then you have the, you know, different processes. And in other things, there's more processes, but tomatoes are pretty simple. So I want to, and if somebody can provide us a pen for this, do we have a, there's pens, oh, there's, no,
She's got one.
yours, okay. So if we can pass this around, and if you would like to, and what I want to know is, how serious are you? We have to prioritize because we can only take 8 people at a time. If you're serious about canning this year, check the serious box. If you're maybe, or if you just don't know, then check the don't know. But we're going to prioritize with the people who are really serious about canning this year. And then we'll go from there depending on how many slots we have left. Yes.
Ask about future classes. Are you going to have a dehydration class?
Have a what?
Dehydration.
Dehydrating?
Maybe another, not this year, because we don't have a lot of experience in it yet. Yeah, at some point. Oh, good. So, yeah, at some point, maybe, yeah. And what we find, our law skills, we kind of diversify, because you'll see our next ones are on emergency planning and car maintenance 101, and we like to diversify to different things. So, you know, it's kind of hard to get all the things we want to do in 1 year.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it is a good idea. We will, yeah. Okay.
One thing I forgot really quick, which is really important if you want to save your fingers, it's just a magnet, but it's got a long handle. So when you're boiling your lids, which is one thing we'll do in the demonstration, I think.
Well,
Yeah.
I hadn't, I need a little bowl to put these in. I didn't.
So if you're boiling your lids, you can stick this in. I've tried
Yeah,
using a
just-
fork before, and the tips of my fingers got so burnt.
Over here.
So this helps a lot because the lid will just stick to it, and you can pull it out that way.
Well, we'll just put it in here. Yeah.
It also helps if you're trying to
I'll
keep it
just put
sterile,
it in
then you're
this
putting your
water
fingers
in.
on it as little as possible.
Don't do what I'm doing.
This is supposed to be a demonstration of what to do. Sorry?
I have a question on the cans. Over the years, I like the cans with the mason cans
Mm-hmm.
versus the empty mayonnaise can.
Yeah.
That the mayonnaise is not the can it used to be.
No,
No.
it's not. Most of the mayonnaise jars are plastic now. But yeah, when we were doing it with that, it was when I was a kid, and they were still glass jars.
Yeah.
And if the
And-
spaghetti jars were shaped right, if you bought spaghetti sauce from the store, we would reuse those too.
Who did?
Lids,
Alice? Oh.
plastic cover,
Classico?
Well,
Yeah.
smaller one, those are Atlas mason jars.
Okay. So we're going to go quickly through our demonstration. Laurel, I'm going to have you, I'm going to start filling jars over here, and you
Okay.
can scald on this side.
Scald? Okay.
Okay, so we're going to put the tomatoes in here just to scald them. This has been boiling, and just go ahead and put several of them in. And then what we do is I use my nice spider and pull it up after about a minute. I said 2 to 3 minutes, but it all depends. I go like this, and I like to just put my fingernail in. That's not quite good enough. I'm going to let it go just a little bit longer. And so she's going to be scalding the things. Are we doing okay on here? Okay. So go ahead and start taking those out and put them in there. And I have some that we scalded before because otherwise they'll get pretty hot. Okay. Okay, I'm fine.
Use a basket that you put.
You can do that if you want. You can if you have one. Yeah.
So sometimes what we tended to do though is we would pull them out and we'd be plopping right back in. And if you're doing a basket, there can be a risk of splatter. And then you may lose more water, may make a mess. You could burn. Yeah.
The other thing is, go ahead and put a few
So,
more in.
okay.
The other thing is that you want this to come back to a boil if you can. You know, this burner probably isn't the best, but so what I'm doing here is I'm getting started to fill my jars, and these are really big tomatoes. I usually use Romas, but I couldn't get those, but I'm going to cut them in just little wedges. Romas will usually give you less juice. They have more pulp and stuff. One tomato that I really, and I'm sorry,
I can't
I'm
get it,
supposed
so.
to be talking about this.
No, you're good.
One of the tomatoes that I really, really like is the San Marzano tomato. I grow those, and they are Roma type tomato, but they are really, really pulpy, and they hold their shape, you know. And in fact, with those, usually with Roma tomatoes, I just push them down in here, you know. With the San Marzanos, I find I have to kind of dice them, you know, but it kind of turns out more like the diced tomatoes from the grocery store. So, anyway, did you want to say anything more?
No, you're good.
Okay. So I'm just going to be filling this. I'm going to be pushing them down in a minute. You know what? Why don't you give me that pusher from the applesauce maker? We'll try that. I had not used that until my mother was helping me with those. She goes, well, how about this thing? And yeah, it really works pretty good. Yes.
Is there a functional reason to take the skins off, or is it purely personal?
They can get pretty tough in a
Yeah.
canning process. And so as far as, you know, long term and stuff like that, once you go to use it, it's so much easier to be able to peel them now versus later, just because of the toughness. I know sometimes, well, especially when you're using the whole tomatoes. Like I've roasted tomatoes, I've sliced them, roasted them in the oven with some seasoning, and then put that in the freezer. And that works okay because I leave the skins on that, but it's much smaller strips, whereas this can be bigger chunks. Yes.
One thing
We have a comment or
talking
question.
about the freezer
Mhm.
is I've seen a lot of people doing
Are we done with this?
what? Yeah, turn it off. A lot of people will take the tomatoes out of their garden, and they don't have time to put them up right then, so they put them in big Ziploc bags or whatever, put them in the freezer. And when you freeze tomatoes, When you take them out of the freezer and let them thaw, the skins slide off. So you don't have to do this, you don't have to do this part of it. The, the skinning.
So
Yeah.
we had a question or comment.
In Europe, we usually remove the seeds and the skin because it's easier to digest the tomatoes when you remove those. And so only recently I found out that they have something called lectins that can kind of make things harder to digest. But we've always done that for hundreds of years. We've always removed the skins and the seeds from the tomatoes.
Okay. If someone's watching online, the comment was that in Europe, they usually remove the skins and the seeds because it makes it easier to digest.
Thank you.
Basically, yeah.
I must be a rebel because I just cook down my tomatoes, and as they're cooking, then I'll throw them in the Vitamixer, zit, 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 and then because I like to take some of the, what I'll do is they cook down and I leave the water. I scoop more of them, and then I stick it in the blender, zit, 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 so I do have the skins on.
Yeah.
I learned to do that, but I like it that way, and I'll put some basil and a little salt,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's kind of a sauce.
We all can
People have
learn,
different ways of doing
different
it.
ways.
Yeah.
It works out
Now, one of the things that I forgot when I started that one is I have to put 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, and so it's easier to put the lemon juice in the bottom because here I'm not going to have enough head space for it. So I'm just going to take some of this out.
The lemon juice is for the acidity.
Yes. Okay, the reason we use lemon juice is for the acidity, because if you don't add lemon juice, then you will, the tomatoes nowadays, especially the hybrid tomatoes and stuff like that, they're formulated for less. They're bred to have less acidity.
So your heirloom tomatoes are going to have more acidity, though.
So Laurel, could you take? I'm kind of messy here. Put a teaspoon. I put a teaspoon of sugar, a teaspoon of salt in each one.
Like if you have the pineapple heirloom that doesn't have as much, isn't that because it's low acid?
For the canning pineapple?
No,
Oh.
pineapple.
Oh, the pineapple tomatoes. Okay. If it's got less acidity, you're going to want to still add some acidity.
Yeah.
Sweet tomatoes, you definitely want to be sure you're doing. Like the yellow ones are often really sweet.
Yeah.
They're lower acid.
You
Mhm.
definitely want to be sure
By
you're doing.
acidity, do you
Here's some
mean
extra.
vinegar or lemon juice or?
We use
Yes.
lemon juice. I use lemon juice. Some people can use vinegar.
If you're doing salsa, you tend to use vinegar. So,
Okay.
I don't know if you want to put any of that on the plate.
Put one of these on the
And
plate.
then
I don't
Just to
care.
have it out of the way if you want. And then
Okay.
extras if you want.
What? Like that?
Oh, no, no, like stick it.
Oh, those. Thank you. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna try to finish this up fairly quickly, and then, okay, so we put our, we need 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in there. And then we have our salt and our sugar in it. And then we will be putting our lids on. I've heard that you have to use this kind of lemon juice because fresh squeezed lemons, the acidity varies. Okay, but we use the jarred lemon juice.
I use the Minute Maid frozen.
Oh, frozen lemon juice? Okay. Okay. Whatever you use would be fine. It just has to be, it can't be the fresh because it varies with the acidity.
How do you get all the tomatoes out of the tomato? grinding all the seeds.
We don't.
You never get all of
You're
them.
not gonna get them all.
When you cut it so that each of the pockets shows simple ways to either, some of them you can squeeze and they'll all
So
drop out.
the question is how to get all the seeds out of the tomatoes, and you just can't.
Tomato, you don't have none of the
You
inside.
don't have any of the seed pockets. They're not-
Okay, you wanna,
you squeeze them out.
But he is talking about it for anyone watching online. If you cut the tomato across and you turn it out and squeeze it, you can get a lot of the seeds out.
and we do appreciate our online viewers.
Yeah, and when you're growing heirloom tomatoes and you wanna save your seeds, you can use a mesh screen, put them out to be able to catch the.
Oh, yeah, use a mesh screen to catch the seeds if you want to save your heirloom seeds.
I got a whole lot of tomatoes coming out.
Okay, so Laurel, do you want to go ahead and put a lid on that one?
Sure.
Oh, one thing we didn't do here, I gotta remind myself, debubble. I use a chopstick, works really nice. And in tomatoes, on the outside, you can tell if there's a little bit of air pocket. And then kind of in the middle, you just do a little more. And you do about half inch, that's just over a half inch, I think. If that's space, it'll be okay. But then make sure you, clean it. And that's one thing you want to make sure you clean the rim, because if you don't, and something's stuck under there, then it's going to impede the
Seal.
seal.
Seed one of those, Martha.
I'm sorry?
Seed one of the tomatoes.
Seed one of the tomatoes. How do you take the seeds out?
I don't. I don't take the seeds out of them.
If you're ever having trouble with the heat with anything, sometimes when I'm handling the lids, I'm fast, I won't do this. You can wear exam gloves, it gives you just a little extra
Yeah.
protection from the heat if you're
So-
touching it.
Yeah.
Well, if you're boiling the
Or like
lids.
If I'm screwing the lids,
Mhm.
and they're hot, really hot, sometimes I'll use them if I'm in a hurry.
Sure.
Okay, there you go.
Silicone gloves too,
Yeah.
that are made for heat, to be able to grab things out of the oven.
Yeah.
Use those.
Okay, so Melody, do you want to come in? Can we get a handheld mic for Melody to tell us how to, okay, this is another water bath canner. This is an electric one. And Melody uses this, and because we don't have a good way of,
There's all kinds.
Yeah.
This is a solution I found. I have an induction cooktop, or if you have a glass cooktop. Can you hear me okay? Okay, so if you have a glass cooktop or induction cooktop, they'll say that if you get it too hot, it can maybe not last as long. So I was concerned about that. So, and plus, when you're in the kitchen and you've got multiple things going, it's helpful to have things away from your stove because you're using your stove for other things. So this is an electric, and I actually have two of these.
Oh.
And it's kind of neat. This base here will come off, and it'll end up going down here and getting stored with a whole bunch of stuff. So everything stays in here. But this will do 7 quarts. And basically you fill it up like any other water bath canner, about halfway, depending if you're going to do a full 7. If you're going to do less, it'll be a little bit more. So, and then basically you can't really see it from there, but there's a dial here that goes from basically off all the way to boil, and they call it canning. This is called a Fresh Tech. It is a ball electric canner. You can get it, I think, Walmart or Amazon. And it does have one of those turrets in the bottom. And then you'll put the jars on. The water will be still. You won't want to put them in when they're boiling, or it can crack the jar. And then you'll put them in, and then they have this to go on top of the jars. So because it's going to be pretty high to the top, and it'll help keep the boiling from going over. Mm-hmm. So what you'll do is you'll bring it up to a boil, and that's when you start your timing. So when you're going to take the jars out, you have to wait. I think you guys, you'll carry that, right? What, 5
Yeah,
minutes?
oh, go ahead. Wait about 10 minutes usually, isn't it?
Yeah, I do 5, but that's
Yeah,
probably fine
5
too.
to 10 minutes.
So when it's boiling and you're done with your time, you want to turn this off, let it come down so it's not boiling before you take the jars out, because that can cause problems too.
But also, one of the other reasons you want to wait 5 to 10 minutes is because it's boiling inside here too. And, you know, if you take it out right away, it is kind of a shock to it, and it will siphon the juice out of here.
Yeah.
So,
It'll make a mess in here.
yeah.
Oh, I should add one other thing. It is helpful to put like 1/4 to 1/2 cup of white vinegar in the water. It helps keep the minerals from depositing all over your jars and having to clean that off. So it makes a big deal difference. Plus, it's easier to clean up the bottom when you're done.
Yeah.
So very
So are
useful.
we ready?
Yeah.
The jar lifter's over there.
Okay, and sometimes I just kind of go by the corner of the jar. It doesn't,
You can do the first few like that.
yeah, yeah. There's a little, and we're gonna have more than we need of water, aren't we?
It's fine. I'll just siphon it off. So you just, if it gets too high, there is a line in here that says max fill, so don't go past that. But if you ever do, I just siphon it off. I usually keep it in a glass container just in case I need to add more back in
I'm
as the
getting
water
close to
boils
the
down.
water. I'm getting too close to the water.
Okay, let's get some off.
Yeah, do you want? Okay.
You've got do you have a scooper that's a
Should
little faster?
I-
Yeah.
Guess this is the don't try this at home canning class.
You can't just get it from the side there?
You could, if you're, this is, by the way, the other nice thing about this, I don't use it, but you can sit this on your sink counter and just drain it without having to mess with the water. I usually just dump it.
So do we know?
If I put it on a table like an island,
I think a little bit more, Melody.
sometimes if I only have 6 jars, I'll fill a jar with water so that it keeps to the water level where I want it. And that'll be my 7th jar.
And you know, when I filled jars with water like that, seal it. Put a lid and a ring on it. Put it on your pantry shelf when you don't have water, or when you're under a water
okay, or do we
boil
need to take
order.
that off?
Niles. So that helps. Is that you want
Yeah,
more
take
out?
a little bit off. Just a little. Whoa.
Okay.
You can do brine that way too. Like say you've got a little pickle brine left,
Mhm.
but you don't want to store it. You can can it, and then you got it for next time.
Yeah.
Or if you have vegetable broth.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can our vegetable broth. A lot of our vegetables, if you're doing organic potatoes or if you, organic vegetables, the peelings, the cores, the whatever of your peppers and all that stuff. As I use it, I stick it in a plastic bag or stick it in something in the freezer. And then keep adding to it. And then every so often, I have a bunch of this stuff, the celery that's kind of getting a little past where you really want to use it and stuff like that, or carrots and stuff like that. And then just put it in a big pot I'll do this pot and put my vegetables up like this and then fill it with water and then boil it for an hour or hour and a half, and then strain the vegetables out. And you can season it a little bit. You can put some herbs in there if you want, along with the vegetables. and then you just can it. I used to freeze it, and then go like, oh, this freezer space, you know. So I started canning it. That again is a pressure canning thing, okay, because it's low acid. So here we are. Laurel, you already talked about the open kettle method, I think.
Yep.
Okay, so pretty much we're done with our demonstration. This is going to be working, but first of all, I want to have a little commercial, would you say? We have a program coming up that you may be very interested in, and Don Savell is going to tell you about it.
Good afternoon. How many of you have heard of Dave Ramsey? Yep. All right. And Financial Peace University? Well, we're offering that right here, and that is starting next month, August the 15th. So if you're interested in that, you can go online to Financial Peace University, and you can put in our address right here, or just put in Edwardsburg zip code, and ask for the closest ones, and we're going to pop right up at the top. And it's going to show you that we're starting on August 15. It's Tuesdays. We're going to run it on Tuesday nights, and it's going to be starting at 6:30 in the evening, and we will run for 9 weeks. It costs $99. The good part is, if you invest the money and buy the package, which you have to get into the class, and you complete the class, our church here is paying you back half of that. So you get $50 back if you complete the class. So it's a pretty nice little incentive. So if you're interested, just want you to know about it. I have some extras of these. If you want one, you can see me afterwards. It's also posted up on the door out there. But to register with us, my email's on there. You just contact me by email, or you can do it right on the website. So we'd love to have you. It starts next month, August 15th.
That's a very, very good program. We've been through it ourselves, and I really think that it's great for people who really need some help. And one thing, all these programs we're doing are free, well, ours is free, that you have to pay for the stuff, but we want to help our community as much as possible and help them be independent and okay, so I think I had a little bit, just a little bit more on the pressure canners. If you bought one like Laurel did at a garage sale, I have seen that some of them, especially if it's a really old one or something like that, then you would want to have the extension office check it out for you. The problem is, the Berrien County Extension Office, and I haven't talked with Cass County, but from what Berrien County told me, it sounded like Kalamazoo is the closest extension office that has the equipment to check out a pressure canner to make sure it's doing the right pressure stuff. One thing that I would definitely make sure of is the ring. Find a replacement ring, and you can find those at the hardware stores, anywhere where they have canning supplies and stuff. If it's a Presto or a Miro, you're usually able to find those. Or, order online like Laurel's ordering. But those rings are really vital because that helps hold the pressure in when you're canning. The other thing about pressure canning, it doesn't take nearly as much water as water bathing. With this, you want to look at the manual for for your pressure canner, but mine says 2 quarts of water. I put a little bit more than, because it just doesn't seem like enough, but I put like 2.5 quarts of water in mine. And then you just put your jars in there. And then what it does, it boils there, and the steam fills the kettle. And that's what helps, and then it puts it under pressure, okay?
Again, if you get it secondhand, then a lot of times you can find the manuals online.
Yeah.
They'll have the full manual, and you can just look through whatever it is for your canner. Like mine and hers too, you can see it tells you what it is up here. So mine, I just looked online, so I knew which parts I needed. I found the owner's manual and things like that.
Yeah, mine is a mirror. Okay, so again, I mentioned before, you don't put your bell on or your weight on until you see the steam escaping for 10 minutes, okay? And what that does, my husband keeps trying to tell me I can put it on sooner. I'm going, no, it has to, that steam has to empty out all the air, you know. It replace all the air in there. So that's why you do that. Okay, after removing jars from a water bath or a pressure canner, you want to place them on a towel on the counter. You don't want to put them on a cold counter or anything. You want to put them on a towel, or we always had a place on the floor out of the way that we put a nice big towel down and put the jars there. You want to let them sit for about 24 hours, and even at 12 hours, like, you know, I finish canning sometimes in the evening, and then in the morning I go and check my jars. And one of the things that you want to make sure is that you're getting, I need a ring, please.
What?
A ring. You want to make sure that you are getting a seal on your jar. And if you don't have a seal like this, you can feel a little pop here can you hear that? Sometimes.
You'll still
Sometimes
feel
they'll
that
work.
when you bring them out of the water after the water bath or the pressure canning is done. It will still depress.
Yeah, you do not want to touch this.
Right.
You want to, you pick it up with your jar lifter and you put it where it's going to sit, and you just leave it there. Oh, one thing we didn't tell them about, when we tightened the when we tightened the ring on our things, on our jars, you don't tighten it like this. You take 3, 4 fingers and then just tighten it to finger tight, they call it, okay? You don't do this, wrist tight, you do finger tight, okay? And then, if you do it too tight, sometimes the jar lid will buckle. You'll see a little raised area there because it's kind of bent in. So that's how you want it firm. You want it firm, but you don't want it tightened down. Anyway, but after you put them on your towel and they're sitting there, then you'll hear this music to your ears, little beep, beep, you know, and they're sealing. And that's just really nice music. You hear, oh, another one sealed. Now you want to check in the morning. And in the morning, or 12 to 24 hours later, you can depress it. You can check it by feeling. And if it goes down, then you didn't get a good seal, okay? If a jar does not seal, I put it in the refrigerator. Try to use it right away. Yeah, that's the best thing. Not try to get it to seal again. Oh, one other thing, and I didn't talk about either. When you're filling your jars or whatever, you want to inspect your jar, because if you have a little ding in the top, just a little crack or a little whatever, it's not going to seal. So, you know, throw those jars away or use it for something that is not canning. Okay? Let's see. I think, so then after I've made sure that they all seal, then I take the ring off. And I had a question last time, I think, about why do you have to take the rings off? Well, the thing is, you could, one, you won't know that it didn't seal necessarily. But two, if the ring is on it and it can't, the bad stuff, the bacteria and whatever, if it didn't seal, if it can't escape, it could break your jar. So you don't want that. Anyway, so you always store your goods without a ring. Okay? Always store them without a ring. And I take, you know, like after I've checked the jars for a seal, then I usually have to wash them up, you know, because some of the stuff is siphoned out or something or other, and I do have to do that. I want to invite you to use your post survey, put your name on it so that we can do a drawing. And no, we don't mind if you say anything bad. We're not going to keep you, you know, that's not going to be a problem for us. But we don't ask you to do a name. It's just only because that's the way we do our drawing. So, oh, one thing, you want to do your rebel candy? Okay, we're gonna, yeah. Am I not getting it? Oh, okay. Okay, I don't know how to put this thing on. Anyway, Laurel says, oh, we gotta have rebel hats, rebel hats. Okay,
If you're going to do rebel canning, you got to look the part.
Yeah. Okay, so we already talked about reusing the lids. I don't even like reusing the lids at home unless I'm really running short of lids and can't get any more. But, you know, if you had to use lids, like I said, inspect them carefully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have you ever bought the resealable, the white resealable?
You had them right here.
Oh, yes, I forgot to mention these. These are a different type of lid. They're called Tatler lids. And you see the ring, this can be used up to 10 times. I don't know exactly how I'm going to count 10 times on each of them, but anyway. So then you put, let me do a small mouth lid, I think. I have small mouth, do I? Or are these all large mouth? These are all large mouth, so I don't have a large mouth jar. But anyway, you would put these on the jar, and then you would use a regular ring and put it on. These are a little bit different, and they send you good instructions when you get it. You do not tighten it. You hold it like this, and you tighten only till it just barely stops, because you want a little bit of air going around it. You know, you don't want it tight down like you're going to do these. And then when you take it out, after you've let it sit in your water bath for, is she timing that?
I think so.
After you let it sit in the water bath, then you want to you take it out, and then you tighten it. Okay, afterwards. You tighten it, and you tighten it good after it comes out. But that lets the air escape, you know, before you take it out. So they are a little different, not as easy to use, but when we have shortages, like a couple years ago, you know, you can get these things. One thing I find, they're a little bit harder to pop off. That's one thing we need to talk about. They're harder to pop the lid off. And okay, so how do you pop a lid off of these? You take either a knife or the edge of a utensil. This is the way I do it. Yeah, some people can do it with a thumb or whatever.
Oh, wow.
I haven't managed that one. But anyway, you put your thing, you know, where the ring, the screw where
Threading.
it comes, and then you, between that and the lid, and you pop it off that way, you know, with a twist like that. They do have, and I found some, and I don't remember if I put it on something, but there's a jar opener for these things. I found it was $24. I'm going, I can do this. But what I was saying about these, I find because of this rubber thing, I've had to, I put my fingernails on the edge of it and pull it up, which is a little bit hard. But because with the rubber, when I'm twisting that thing, I'm afraid I'm gouging the rubber, and you know, it's just kind of. No, oh, you know how you know it's sealed? Is if you pick it up like this and it comes off. Yeah, that's the way they say, you know. If you're using this one, if you pick it up by the lid and it comes off, then yeah, you didn't get a seal. But other than that, that's how you know. Thank you, that's a good question. Okay, oh, one more rebel thing. Have you ever canned in a spaghetti jar or something like that?
It's been a while, but yeah.
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 Any jar, and I didn't bring one, any jar that has rubber on the inside of the jar lid and has that little button, you know, they have a little button, like a pickle jar, a spaghetti sauce jar, or, you know, things like that. You can, again, I wouldn't do it in a pressure canner, but you can put those back. And you know what I'm going to do this, I don't know, I'll probably have to put some vinegar in my red peppers, but I love to make my own pimentos, you know, so because I use them to make a cashew pimento cheese, you know, non-dairy cheese, and so I like to roast my pimentos and put them in the little jars. I save all my little pimento jars, and I have frozen them, but I want to put a little vinegar in them and can them and see if I can, you know, use them that way. But I will, you know, make sure that button goes down as a seal. But that's rebel canning, okay? You have to make up your own mind about what you do. So, okay.
Well, and then storing. Where do we put the jars when we're done canning?
I'm sorry, what?
When we're done
storing.
canning, storage.
Okay, go ahead.
So one of the things, you know, you want to keep them in a cool, darker place. Now, I live in an apartment. Mom puts hers in the basement. That's perfect. I don't have a basement. So I have kind of a nook area that doesn't get direct sunlight, and I have a rack there with all my canning things on it. And it's, you know, it's on the main floor, which is the cooler floor, because, you know, upstairs is always hot. So, in a cooler place, some place out of direct sunlight, just so that you don't get, well, we all know what sunlight does to just about anything. It bleaches color out of it and things like that, and it can damage the integrity of your seal as well, because it's heating up your goods again.
Is this going to be for pick up the things, surveys?
Mom, did you have anything else?
Nope, I don't think so. We're going to pick
Okay.
up the surveys real quick. Yes.
So I think she put this on the handout too, one of the resources that you can use, especially if you're new to canning, the Farmer's Almanac or almanac.com online, they have a lot more information about pressure canning. They have more information about specific things with hot water bath canning, and there's recipes that you can get there as well.
Yes. No, our mother first. Oh, okay. Thank you. She wanted me to tell you how I can my dry beans. Okay. So I take my beans. This thing is having trouble here. Okay. I take my beans and I soak them overnight. That's a big important step because you want them swelling outside the jar, not inside the jar. And so I soak them overnight, and then I usually go with pints, but I did quarts the other day. Did I bring one?
Mm-hmm.
There's a quart of black beans. So what I did with a pint, I'll put about 1 1/4 to 1 1/2 cups of soaked beans, because I want to get at least a 1.5 cups out of this. That's what your cans, your 15-ounce cans, will give you, about 1.5 cups of beans. So I put those in there, just soaked. I put 1/2 teaspoon of salt in mine. You don't have to put any salt in it if you don't want to. In the quart, I put 3 cups of beans, soaked beans, and a teaspoon of salt. And then I fill it up to about 1 inch of headspace. 1 inch of headspace is usually that line right there, okay, with water. And I put warm water in it. I kind of put it for my tea kettle, put kind of hot water in it. And then you, seal, put the jar lid and the ring on just like that. Put it in the pressure canner. I can put 2 layers of, here, I need to put this over here where we can see it maybe. I can put 2 layers of jars in here. I have a trivet down in the bottom. I think it goes opposite. I think this goes in the bottom. And I put my 8, 9 jars, depending on the size. If I have regular lids or regular openings on my jars, then I can do 8. No, I can do 9. If I have wide mouth jars in there, wide mouth pints, then I can only do 8. And then I put my next trivet on and then stack the second one in there. And I can get 16 or 18 pints in there. And I think for pints, you do it for, and you can even ask online. I asked Siri, how many minutes? You pressure them at 10 pounds for 75 minutes. And for quarts, you pressure them for 90 minutes. Okay? And it's really nice having that convenience. It really is. Because you can get your dry beans so much cheaper. In fact, last year, I took 50 black beans from what I bought at the grocery store. I planted them in my garden. And at the end of the summer, I picked all the dry things, and shelled them. I had a pound. And this year, if I had had space in my garden, I wanted to plant a 40-foot row. Well, I guess it would have been probably 3 40-foot rows of black beans, and I figured I could probably get 10 pounds of black beans. But I didn't have enough room. So, okay. We're going to do the drawing. Okay. Shall we start at the beginning?
Sure. Why not?
Okay. This is a utensil set, and it has a jar lifter, a funnel, and a debubbler. And we're going to see who...
Where's-
Oh, did they put their name on here?
I don't see a name on there.
Nobody put their name on. Is that yours?
Is that your handwriting?
A lot of people didn't put their name on it.
Here. Is that it?
That's mine, yeah.
Okay. Maria.
All right.
Here you go. Okay. Next we got, let's see, we got several of these, so we'll do, okay, debubblers, 2 of them. Get two.
And magnet.
Oh, this is a cute one. It has a magnet. It's 2 in 1.
3 in 1 because it measures your head space. And if you have like a magnetic board or something, you can use it as a dart and make it a 4 in 1.
So, anyway.
All right, Corianne.
Corianne. Okay, here, and one more. Thank you for coming.
And let's see. I don't think I have a name on this one either.
Okay. They gave us a 10 out of 10. Is that yours?
All right.
Okay. Let's see. We'll do another one. Trivet. Okay.
CB. All right.
And let's see. Pump funnel.
Reggie.
Who?
Reggie.
Reggie. Oh, good. And, okay, we have, well, here's just a magnetic wand.
Susie.
Who?
Susie.
Oh,
Right here.
okay. And now we have 3 of these.
MMC. Okay. Another no name, but I always wanted to learn but have no equipment.
Oh, good.
All right, now you have equipment, some. Little starter. All right, Karen Nelson.